and welcome to the Dog Savant podcast. My name is Brett Endies. I am the host. I am a professional dog trainer. The reason for this podcast is to share my dog training experience. If you are a dog owner seeking dog training and behavior advice, if you are a client in the real world looking to supplement the information we are working on in our sessions, and of course, if you're anyone who is just interested in dog training, dog behavior, life of a professional dog trainer, this podcast is for you. Don't forget to rate, review, share, subscribe. I always ask. Not many people do it, but it'd be really helpful. It will get other people to hear the show, help other dog owners, help me. I also have a Patreon page, patreon.com/thedogsavant. I want to be able to add more content, high quality content or higher quality content, and just be able to offer more online type of services since we are living in the pandemic times. And with that said, I also am offering online dog training sessions. They are working out wonderfully. I am able to coach you through the majority of any real world training or problem behavior scenarios you may be experiencing. So contact me, please, if you are interested anywhere. As long as you speak English, I can help you. dogtrainingla@gmail.com. Today's episode 92. I wanted to name, I was kind of thinking of what would be a good name based on a text that I had this morning with a puppy owner who I think probably got some information from online or a friend, family member. Everyone always seems to be the expert when somebody gets a new puppy because they had dogs all their life and so on and so forth. So I'm naming it Spray Bottles and Slow Bowls. Last episode was actually a very similar theme. I'm going to keep it a little lighter this time and maybe just talk about some actual practical solutions as a better way to respond to some of these things that I find are a little harebrainy, cockamamie type of ways of training dogs, because they really can backfire, cause more problems down the road, and of course they might not address why a dog does what they do. As I always talk about, is where you want to kind of go when it comes to understanding and addressing dog training problem behaviors or getting your dog to listen in the real world. So let's start with spray bottles. It was a client of mine. They just asked about if it would be good to give their dog a spray, when their dog it's a puppy, it's a pretty young dog, was looking to get into stuff like in the yard and whatnot. And the whole idea is, number one, that's going to just cause your dog a startle response. And yes, it's a correction, but it's a very intense correction. What I would rather do, because the puppy's very new, they haven't even been in the house for a week, is just go out there with a leash. Have the dog navigate the space, and if they do show interest when the dog is either, anticipating and getting ready to go dig in the flower bed or chew on the things that it shouldn't, you use the leash, you redirect them. You can even say leave it, and then you give them a toy, a ball, something else. If you want to go a step further, if you started engaging obedience commands, you can start redirecting your dog's attention into a sit for 20, 30 seconds till they forget about wanting to keep going, because that's the problem, is you got to have a really high value toy to, if you want to call it, distract the dog. And it's also just lack of effect. If the dog, every time they go for the flower bed, you're right there with the leash and you're swift with your response, and it doesn't get anywhere accomplishment wise, but they're like, well, this toy that you give me, or this bone to chew on, is an alternative. You just counter condition them, and at some point they're going to make these choices and know that something doesn't get them somewhere. So why even bother trying? Because dogs are very cause and effect based. Whether or not you have the leash or you're monitoring them, right? So you start with a close range leash, then you go into a maybe long leash. You can give them. You'll probably at that point have more voice control over the dog, so you can even redirect them with a recall. And this is what you do for any distractions. Just with something like a yard or the home environment, same thing. You want to, pardon me. You want to. I'm not sick, by the way. That was just a dry throat. I talk a lot. So the whole idea is you want to just establish this kind of zero-sum game where you don't get to go into chew the cords. Why? Because we're watching it very diligently. That's what I talk about all the time. Puppies get into trouble for having too much freedom too soon in their lives and not structuring and scheduling their exercise and their walks and all that, and being more chill and on a leash and in a crate and in a place just watched more in the home or even the yard for that matter. So again, spraying it is just too simplistic. Yeah, a dog goes for it, just spray it. I mean, it is again a correction, but it's a very weird correction. I don't understand why. And you know what? It works like anything. A dog at the very best is only going to listen when they see you holding a spray bottle. I'm going to go on a sidebar right here about spray bottles. So I don't know if I told this story. Anyone who actually is a listener and has listened to every episode and can retain, because I couldn't tell you what I said right after I recorded this. But if you do remember I told the story, I apologize. But I this is really something that kind of stood out to me when I was thinking spray bottles. So this is back in New York, where I'm originally from, where I started as a dog trainer, and this is in the suburbs of Long Island, and there's a dog park out there, and I was just there with a client. I meet people sometimes outside of dog parks just to work on the distractions and just kind of use that environment as a good way to practice what we're doing. And I'm in there, and I just kind of see this lady. It was just a really disheveled, kind of like real piece of work lady, kind of lady that wears like the sweatshirt airbrushed of like her dog breed because she went to dog, whatever, all dog lovers, right? So, but she's spraying other people's dogs, her dogs, and she's just like going at it like, what are you doing? So I couldn't take it anymore. You could tell everyone was trying to, afraid to say anything. They just didn't know how to confront her. I'm like, screw this. I tell my client, hold on a second. I just go into the dog park, walk up to her, grab the spray bottle, slam it on the ground, thing cracked on the nozzle, and I said, have a nice day. You don't do that to other people's dogs. You keep that shit at your house. A, because it's just not appropriate. It's like someone who brings treats and just starts feeding people's dogs at a dog park or and doesn't ask, or someone who comes up and pets your dog unannounced and doesn't ask permission first. Right? I think that's very self-indulgent, and at some point someone has to say something, and then me as a dog trainer, not to be Mr. Dog Park social justice warrior, but I felt that it was my place to step in and say, cut it out, okay? This is not how you're supposed to handle this, and even if you feel it is, you do it with your dogs in your home, not here at the dog park, right? So, just a little funny spray bottle story. But I see it a lot. I've seen people, like, when their dogs pull on the leash, they're, like, reaching over. It's just anyone who thinks clearly, anyone who doesn't have this blinding way of just perceiving something that isn't real. What are you doing with your spray bottle, your harness, your retractable leash, your nose lead, all that crap? And it all comes from the same school of thought. How is spray bottles, because purely positive people do the spray bottle thing, I think. How is that at all positive? You're freaking a dog out by spraying water in its face. So now when it goes to get a bath, it's going to get an issue. It doesn't trust your hand approaching it. That's why you use a leash and a collar to correct, because it's an extension of yourself. That's why you don't use your hands on a dog unless you're petting him or handing him a treat, or you're using pressure point work. You're not, it's just, if you think about it, it's like, boy, it's why, because that sounds better than a collar. It looks better to an owner, a spray bottle with water, because you spray it on plants, so spray it on, I don't know. Bizarre thinking, but it's hurting these poor dogs emotionally, behaviorally, and even physically. I just can't have it. Anyway. So with that said, spray bottles, slow bowls. Now I use slow bowls, okay? I do use them as a way to work in conjunction with addressing the issue that would make a dog eat fast, because that's what they're supposed to do. There's different versions of them. They might not all be called a slow bowl, but they're just like convoluted dog bowls. It's like the old trick where they say put a couple tennis balls in the dog's dish while they're eating, because it gets in the way and they can't just gulp full scoops of food, so it forces them to eat slower. Same idea with a slow bowl. The issue is that your dog has a speed eating problem that you have to work on. And in most cases, a dog eats too fast because they're over anticipating food. There's other elements of their life where their anxiety and over exuberance and anticipation gets them their needs met, so they carry it over to food. Unless there's a medical thing that the vet says is driving them, 9 out of 10 times it's just the dog needs to learn more structure, more patience, and then right up to the point of learning how to calmly wait for their food. And how do you do that? You do place training well in advance. You do exercises throughout the day when it's not feeding time, where you put the food down and then you just let them chill and you put the food away, so they learn to turn off that assumption a little bit. Oh, it's me and the dog's going to be teased. You think they're going to eat. Well, they're going to eat later. Unless you're actually starving your dog, you're just conditioning a dog to calmer responses to the stimuli. I'll tell you. Anyway, so that's what you want to, kind of do. And then sometimes what you do is like you get dog calm. You lead them to the food. You release them. Tell them okay. Let them eat. And then they start building up momentum as the meal starts. You stop it. And sometimes you have to break their food, each meal into 4, 5, 6 intervals. Okay, you go back to your place, you relax, reset, let's do it again. And over time, your dog will learn how to eat calmly and slowly. It's not that they just eat fast, so give them a slow bowl. That's so simplistic. We do that with ourselves now. We don't address our human issues. That's why so many people have mental illness and it's unresolved. And then we get to the point where we excuse it, and we're supposed to have, yes, we have sympathy. I'm not even saying compassion. Sympathy is pathetic. Compassion, where you understand the other perspective of the other party and you can feel for them, but you also understand what needs to be done, good or bad, to help or to contribute to the goodness that they're offering the world, right? So and with dogs, they're not that complicated. I had a client today, she asked me about, because her puppy's new, same puppy, and I'm sure the breeder or someone told her because her puppy hasn't pooped yet outside as much as peeing, and it's like, well, it must be the time zone change. To go 1 hour time zone or 2 hours time zone, they're not that complicated. They're not going to be that affected. And if we think in those terms, we're going to put anxiety into the environment. The dogs sense that energy. It's not like, oh, you're medically fine. Make sure the vet says they're okay. That's always the most important thing when it comes to these type of things. Oh yeah, they're fine. Dog just has to learn to go outside. Good. Use the crate more. Let him learn. If he doesn't go outside, he holds it for a couple hours. He'll figure out pretty quickly it's time to go outside. You reward it, and then you get your conditioning element kicking in. That's it. But that matter-of-fact approach is so hard for owners because I walk them through it every day. I hold people's hands to get them to see it, and then when they do, they're good. But a lot of people, as we've talked about in other episodes, is they just want to feel with their emotions. They feel they're traumatizing the dog by making them have to hold it. They're seeing them as little humans, and even our little humans are getting treated like Cupid dolls. They're really being treated to be weak-minded and weak physically human versions of what I remember the people I grew up around to be. Not all, right? I live in the mountains here. There's some tough suckers here, but there's a lot of people I see that mentally are just so weak. And these are not always children. These are adults, a lot of the cases. And they just can't hear anything they don't want to hear, and they want to think about themselves and play the victim, and we project this onto our dogs. And that's a lot of, well, we don't want to deal with it. We don't want to stress the dog out by making them have to learn how to eat slower, or how, you know what I mean? Like, again, if you're listening to this and this makes sense to you and you're not having this beg to differ mindset, you get it. It's not a dog thing. This is a human condition thing. But if you're like, what does he know? He says narcissism, he's self-righteous. I have 26 years now experience. I've trained tens of thousands of dogs. You can go check the track record. Any name I drop, I've trained their dog, we can prove it. Okay, so I know what I'm talking about, and there's other trainers who know as much or more than me. I'm not saying I'm Mr. Dog Training God like some of these people in my profession do because they can get results and know what they're doing. No, it's just let's help the dogs and the owners by educating, not pandering to emotions, telling the truth, okay? And again, some things have merit. I talk about harnesses as being so negative for walking, but you see me in videos using them for pulling. Right? I use slow bowls, but that just works in conjunction with, again, the slow mindset and all these other ways of teaching a dog. You don't teach a dog to walk by putting a harness on or a no-pull device. You teach him how to walk. You teach him how to focus. You teach him how to hold their attention with a heel command. Right? I talk about this often because it's one of the primary things I'm going through when I do my sessions with my clients. All right, so anyway, I hope that made a good point for you. Thank you all for listening, and don't forget, please review on iTunes and all those places. Tell a friend. Let me know. It makes me feel good when I know I'm helping. I'm not making a living off of this podcast. I'm not doing anything but just recording them and putting them out. But, supporting me really helps me motivate to continue to do this. And just, again, the more you tell people, the more people I can help. And if you want me to help you for real, let me know. If you're in Colorado, I'm doing real-world training, boarding and train. And if you are anywhere else, I can do virtual sessions. And again, they are working out wonderfully. Contact me, dogtrainingla@gmail.com. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.